What's this guy doing on my computer? Jehovah Bear, if you had something to do with this, chill out. Why does the web address say jw.org? Just relax. This guy's cool if you give him a chance. I told you I don't like him. Lighten up, man. Just get into the music. Let go. Release all thought. What will bring Jehovah's kingdom?
Triumph of truth and righteousness.
And bring what else? Jehovah's kingdom.
Eternal life and happiness. Praise the universal sovereign for his love and faithfulness.
I don't like this guy.
Come on, get into it. Oh, yeah.
He's like a pedophile.
That's in the sweet spot.
He's like a father to me.
Yeah.
This guy's awesome. I don't care what you say.
Soul music. Soul music, motherfuckers.
I just don't understand anything. I could teach you
Here's
something
that
about
shit.
righteousness.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. I want to hear you say, huh?
Yeah. This guy speaks to me. I understand where he's coming from.
Triumph of truth and righteousness.
And bring what else? Jehovah's kingdom.
Eternal life and happiness. Praise the universal sovereign for his love and faithfulness.
This guy's a pervert. I should call the cops.
I'm gonna get some. I'm doing the limo.
Don't do that.
Oh, yeah. Bring that shit in. Hell to the, oh, yeah.
Oh, what's he doing?
Oh, here it comes. Oh. Riding that shit like a sound
I don't know what that
wave.
was, but yeah.
I'm riding the Google wave right now.
That's
Hell to
wrong.
the,
I don't care, I still like
It's
it.
like sex, but even better. This is like sex, Jehovah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, hitting every inch of that. Oh, yeah. Oh, here comes another one. Here comes one more.
It's gross.
Oh, now we're going to do it from this side. To the left, to the left. To the front, to the front.
The universal.
What's your problem with this guy anyway?
He's
just spreading the word to people. You can learn something from it. Something about righteousness.
Involving a JW family, a man and his wife, and they had several children, one of whom was a teenage girl named Jenny. Well, the JW dad of the family, one Saturday morning, he's checking the mail and he's going through the letters. Well, he finds a package addressed to Jenny. Big package, and there's no return address. Well, this is suspicious to him, so he rips the package open and he pulls out the contents, amongst which is Polaroid pictures. And these pictures, I'm going to try to say this delicately, apparently a man had pulled down his pants, taken a Polaroid camera, and took photos of his private parts and mailed them to this teenage girl. Well, and these were graphic photos. I mean, he lifted up his bag. Included in the package he pulls out just a rambling 10-page letter, just lustful, passionate writings to this high school girl, Jenny. And he was just very graphic, hardcore, passionate writings. Apparently, Jenny had a secret admirer. And this has been going on for a couple of months. She didn't tell her parents about it. She imagined that a worldly boy at her school had an interest in her but was too shy to ask her out or something, she would come to her car after school and there would be a flower sitting on the roof of the car. Another time she came out and there was a box of cherry cordials. She looked around and said, "Oh, some worldly boy likes me." Well, it turns out that this was a grown man, if you know what I mean. Well, he's hung like a horse. You're asking, well, did the JW parents call the police? Well, no. They called the elders. You see, Jehovah's Witnesses do not like getting the police involved in kingdom matters. They're very reticent to call the police. Now, let me help you understand this. If, say, if you're a Jehovah's Witness and something gets stolen from your car, well, of course you call the police because a worldly person took it, and the police can go out and try to find it. But when something is occurring inside Jehovah's organization, no matter how bad it is, they don't like to get the police involved because you don't want to bring that into Jehovah's world because it's a disgrace and they don't like the publicity. And so JWs are instructed to call the elders, let them take care of it. Well, and it was quickly deduced that this was indeed a kingdom issue that was happening. You see, this rambling letter that was scribbled out on notebook paper was a combination of pulp romance combined with alliterations from the Song of Solomon, specifically the New World Translation version of the Book of Solomon. And because of other jargon and lingo that was in the letter, it was written in the pure language of Jehovah's Witnesses, and it was determined that this man who had a fascination and fixation with Jenny was, in all likelihood, a man at the Kingdom Hall. And immediately they called the elders, and the elders assembled a task force to investigate the situation. And more letters came. In fact, every couple of days there'd be new letters in the mail. Just passionate, lustful writings. Well, the body of elders determined that in all likelihood this was a Hispanic man. You see, in his writings, he kept referring to he was obsessed with his genitals, and he kept referring to them as his man part, which is something a Latino man would say. And he would, in one writing he said, he was writing in prose, but he was speaking to Jenny, and queried to her if she liked the way his man looked when it was bulging in the front of his pants. And he said, "Oh, on Thursday night when you walked in the hall and I turned and saw you, my man lifted up." He said, "I saw you and my man lifted." He described to her how his man raised up. Well, they said, that sounds like maybe something a Hispanic brother would say. Whoa, calm down. Anyway, this investigation continued for 3 weeks, and the letters continued coming until there was finally a break in the case. The stalker made a critical mistake in one of his writings, and these would go on for pages. But in one segment of this passionate letter, he again was speaking in this open letter to Jenny and asked her, "On Sunday, when my man was inches from your face," he asked her, "could you feel the energy pulsating off my man?" And the elder, the lead elder in the case, his name is Stanley, very perceptive man, said, "Well, when would his man have been inches from Jenny's face?" And it occurred to him, microphone handler, waist level, she's right there. Well, this group of suspects, which was 300 people, being a double Kingdom Hall with 150 each, was quickly reduced down now to 2 people. The 2 microphone handlers on that Sunday meeting, one of which was a guy that did not fit the bill at all. The other one was a Hispanic 31-year-old man named Pepito. Yeah. Well, immediately they called Pepito into a elders meeting, and they gave him the 3rd degree, but he didn't crack. He just denied everything, swore up and down that it wasn't him. And because there was no evidence or witnesses against him, the elders just had to leave it at that. But the next evening, Stanley thought of something, and he called Pepito up and he said, we'd like to have another meeting with you, and this time we'll do a handwriting analysis. If you could bring in some of your letters and just write this out, and then we'll compare it with the letters that we received, and we'll put the matter behind us. And Pepito agreed to that. But a couple of hours later, he called the elder back and said that he had a family emergency that was happening in California. His family, they're having a hard time paying their bills, and they need him to move over there. So he packed up his stuff and left before the next meeting. Then 24 hours, he was gone. And if you're asking how I know all the details of the case, well, one of the elders in the hall, his wife was the biggest gossip in the circuit, so everyone knew the details. And when Jenny found out that it was Pepito that had been writing these pornographic letters to her, she said, "Oh, sick." Well, that was the end of Pepito. He left, no one ever saw him again. And if you're asking, was that the end of the letters? Well, indeed it was. So, you tell me. You know, the JW legal system receives a lot of criticism online, but I'm just keeping it real. In this instance, had the JW parents opted to call the police and turn the matter over to them, well, you know what would have happened. They would have filled out a little report, put it in a file somewhere, and done nothing, right? Well, in this case, they turned the matter over to the elders, and because of the elders' expertise and knowledge of the Kingdom Hall situation, they were able to take care of business. They got their man, they solved the case. Look, if worldly people had been left in charge of this, the stalking would have gone on for months, resulting in who knows what. But the situation was dealt with and taken care of. Like it or not. Well, this wasn't the last time that the task force would be assembled. In the same hall, not even a year later, there was another sister in the congregation who was also receiving some unwanted attention from a mysterious man. Her name was Marietta. Marietta was new to the truth. She had just been baptized recently. She was a Spanish-speaking woman, very beautiful, long black hair, single mother. She had been married to a Mexican cowboy guy, and recently divorced. You see, he was a ranch hand. He's one of these guys who wears a big cowboy hat, cowboy boots, the whole deal, and he was one of these rodeo guys that would go on the circuit there. And of course, he was living that honky-tonk lifestyle of going to bars, chasing women. Marietta put up with it for a long time, but once she came into the truth, she stopped the whole thing and attained a scriptural divorce. Well, her worldly ex-husband, he didn't take it very well. They had 2 small children together, and so he was pretty unstable about the whole thing. He showed up drunk a couple of times. One of those real temperamental guys. You know those worldly types. Well, Marietta began having some problems about a year after she got baptized. She told the elders that she was getting mysterious phone calls in the middle of the night. She would, at midnight, she'd get a phone call, get up out of bed, go answer, and it'd be breathing on the phone. Or sometimes just hanging up, and she told the elders, "A man is watching me." She felt like a man was after her. And the body of elders told her to keep them apprised of the situation. Well, not long after that, something did occur. Marietta is a cleaning lady now. She does cleaning jobs in the evenings so that she can, focus on field service during the daytime there. She goes in to banks, office buildings after hours, vacuums, cleans up. Well, she's coming out of one of her accounts this one evening and putting her supplies back in the car, and the streets are empty, but she looks down about a block away and she sees a man peeking out from behind the building. It's dark, she can't really see who it is, but there is definitely someone watching her. Well, she's terrified. She gets in her car as quick as she can, drives away, and she goes to her next account, gets her jobs done, and returns home that evening, and she's unloading her supplies again. She looks up in the moonlight. In the tree line about 100 feet away, she sees the silhouette of a man standing there watching her. Well, she's scared to death. She runs inside as fast as she can. The next day at the meeting, she again tells the elders what happened, and they tell her that they are going to assign a security detail to her. There's another one of these situations where they decide, instead of calling the police, that they are going to circle the wagons, close ranks, and take care of business. Jehovah takes care of his own. And this newly baptized sister has, in all likelihood, her ex-husband, still obsessed with her, harassing her. Well, the elders are going to regulate. And they tell her what they're going to do is have the elders take turns driving past her house every couple of hours and keep an eye out for this character, whoever he is standing out there in the shadows. And in fact, one of the elders is custom fit for this assignment. Stanley, that I was telling you about, he is a young elder, very popular, charming man. Tall guy, well-dressed, he wears very fancy clothes, very popular, and he's very reassuring. And he volunteered for the assignment. He said, I'd be happy to check in on her. What he's going to do, and the elders gave Marietta Stanley's phone number and said, whenever you see this character out there following you around, watching you, call Stanley, and he'll do a circuit around the area, do a perimeter, and check everything out. And Marietta immediately begins taking advantage of this situation, and at first it was once or twice a week she would call and say, oh, I see someone out there, oh, but pretty soon it was getting to be an almost every night thing where she was calling and saying, oh, Stanley, Stanley. Here's the thing. Stanley is married to a woman named Kelly. Kelly's not naive. She's not a stupid woman. And she could kind of see what was actually maybe going on here. Marietta, single woman at the hall, and her husband, Stanley. This isn't the first time a woman has tried to get a little attention from her husband, being a very tall, charming elder. She could kind of see what direction this was going in. That, women can kind of perceive the JW women in the hall were like, oh, she has a stalker, huh? A stalker? Look, you in the audience, let me ask you, any woman you know, if you walk up to them and say, hey, do you have a stalker? They say, oh yeah, I have a stalker. What woman you know doesn't have a stalker? Well, the JW women at the hall, specifically Kelly, felt that this seemed like a ploy of Marietta's to garner attention from the brothers, and that she was always, oh, I need to be rescued. Well, being an elder's wife, Kelly just bit her tongue and sat back. And it seemed to be getting worse. Week after week, Marietta kept calling Stanley, and then Stanley would run to the rescue. Well, it came to a crisis point. Finally, one Friday evening, Kelly receives a voicemail from Stanley. You see, that Friday evening, he had gone to the Kingdom Hall for an elders meeting. They had a brief elders meeting, following which he was going to go deliver magazines to some of the older ones in the congregation, which he does typically once a month. Well, He calls after the meeting has concluded and tells Kelly that he is going to be late. Don't expect him because he's going to have to go by Marietta's again because apparently she was taking a shower, and when she got out of the shower, she saw that a man was watching her through the window. And she's very upset and called, and Kelly is, she says, hell no. Hell no. This is the breaking point for her. She said, I'm not going to sit back and just let Marietta work out her designs on. She's seen this movie before. It's the Kevin Costner, Whitney Houston thing where, oh, you're my hero, you're coming to save me. Oh, we're from different worlds, but it feels so right. We're going to put a stop to this once and for all. And she picks up the phone. She dials 911. Let's see how flirty she feels when the actual police shows up. Let's see how long this game, this charade is going to continue. And she talks to the police operator and says, hi, we have a Spanish lady in our church, and she says that she has a prowler at her house. Could you come check that out? And the police dispatcher tells her that there's a patrol car in the area, could be there in 5 minutes. She says, I'll meet you there. Well, Kelly jumps in her car and she drives over to Marietta's as quick as she can. She's imagining this in her mind. Oh, it's the perfect setup that Marietta has going here. She answers the door and she's barely covered with a towel. Her hair's wet and glistening. And then, oh, Stanley, oh. Yeah, Kelly is not having it anymore. It ends tonight. And she pulls up to Marietta's house. Stanley isn't there yet. He must not have made it. But just as she suspected, Marietta is standing outside the house looking in need of help. She's wearing a robe that's barely covering her. And outside the house there's a policeman with a flashlight looking around. Well, Kelly approaches him and says, she walks up there and says, hi, I'm the one who called. Marietta goes to church with us. And she feels like she has a stalker that's been following her, but, you know, she's from another country, so... And the police officer's looking around, and he said, oh yeah, you got a stalker. He was here not less than an hour ago. And Kelly says, well, you know, sometimes shadows can play tricks on people, and sometimes when you're scared at night. And the policeman's looking around, and he said, no, there's a man here. He's been watching you for some time, Marietta. Those bushes back there. See, what he does is he waits until the coast is clear, and then he walks right through here, watches you through that bathroom window. And Kelly looks up at the window and she says, that's awfully high. Are you sure about that? And he said, oh yeah. Big, tall guy came through here. He turns this bucket upside down. Looked through that, stood up there, looked through the window. When you were taking that shower, he probably saw every inch of your body. And Marietta says, oh. And Kelly says, are you positive about that? And the officer says, yep, clear as day. You can see his footprints right through here. Big, tall guy. Kind of surprising, though. I didn't expect him to be wearing wingtips. And Kelly says, wingtips? The officer says, yeah, you know, dress shoes.
Dear Diary, my name is Little Billy. I am an 18-year-old servant of the living God Jehovah. Well, my hobbies include eating Lunchables, climbing trees, and earning my salvation in the door-to-door preaching work. We're here today to share a scriptural thought with you and your neighbors.
Who's we? You got a mouse in your pocket? Anyway, I'm not interested. Get lost.
We hear that a lot. Being in this time of the end, just as in the days of Noah, people taking no note.
Wait, Noah? You mean like Noah's Ark? Like the kid's story?
No, I mean like Noah's Ark, the true Bible account.
Oh. Well, since you brought the topic up, I did have a couple questions about that.
Well, we're here to answer your questions.
I was wondering about continental drift. Like, what does the Bible say about that?
I don't understand the question.
The supercontinent, Pangea. All the major land masses on Earth used to be interconnected, geologically. And then over millions of years, the plates ripped apart and they drifted. How does the Bible say that happened? Like, before the Garden of Eden, or after the flood, or what's going on?
Let me think. Well, it would have been after the flood. The plates drifted apart during the formation of the earth, and then after the flood is when the waters filled in the cracks. You see?
Oh. Well, then how did marsupials end up in Australia?
Huh?
Kangaroos. If Noah's Ark landed on Mount Ararat, that's in the Middle East, how did they end up all the way in Australia?
Well, how did humans end up on Easter Island?
They rode in canoes.
Well, there's your answer.
The kangaroos rode in canoes?
It rhymes, doesn't it?
Have you ever seen a kangaroo? Have you ever watched a video of someone trying to walk up to a kangaroo?
Well, obviously, the Aborigines at the time took baby kangaroos out of their mother's pouches.
Oh. Well then, what about hyenas and jackals and wombats and Tasmanian devils? How did they all end up there?
Same thing. They were put in a boat. They must have been tied up first.
So, it was like a second Noah's Ark to get to Australia?
Apparently so.
Jehovah's Spirit was helping Pacific Islanders who didn't worship him to have a second Noah's Ark? Why?
It must have been in Jehovah's timetable.
But you're just making that up. It's not in the Bible or anything.
Well, we can reason from the scriptures and deduce this logically.
But I thought the whole point of Jehovah scattering the people at Babel was to repress their efforts to do anything large scale.
Well, Jehovah does many things, not all of which are included in the Bible.
Yeah, but then you can't just make stuff up.
It's not making it up. It's reasoning from the scriptures. I can see you're going to be stubborn about this. You're one of those brazen worldly people, determined to trust in their own wisdom.
Huh? I didn't say anything about my own wisdom. You're the one that showed up here telling me to trust in your wisdom.
Well, that's different. We're from Jehovah. We bear his name. Who else but Jehovah's people are doing this preaching work?
So, wait a minute. If I showed up on your porch tomorrow morning, preaching and saying the same things you do, would that mean I'm from Jehovah?
No. You're just an individual, not an organization.
Oh. Well, what if my friends and I organized and then went door to door talking about Jehovah? Would that prove that he sent us?
No. It doesn't work that way.
I'm starting to see that the only way it works is when it works for you. Every question, every answer has some back door you can slip out of. Is this all you do, is just play tricks and word games with people? How can you call that a preaching work? And where is Jehovah anyway?
How come he has to send some guy to my door and all he can do is read the inside slip of a magazine cover? If we're at the point of Armageddon, how come he can't do anything for himself? Why would I feel a sense of urgency when the previous 2 generations of people that felt that urgency died without a damn thing happening? If Jehovah wants me to believe that the end of the world is about to happen, he shouldn't have tricked the previous 2 lifetimes of people that came before me. Who do you think you are anyway? Where do you get off? What the hell are you doing on my porch? Dear Diary, Monday through Friday, Satan's old system of things requires me to attend school, or as I call it, informal territory.
Hello, students. Welcome to our class again. Well, it's time to get our science textbooks out. We'll begin studying for our final test this Friday. Yes, William, you have something to say?
It's little Billy.
Yes, Billy?
Permission to put my head down on my desk, sir.
No. I don't want you doing that.
Understood. I'll just push my desk out into the hallway.
No, Billy. I won't have you claiming religious exemption every time we study history or science or biology.
Mr. DeGrasse, we've been over this before. My parents brought you the brochure at the beginning of the year.
I don't give a flip about that brochure. I'm the teacher here, you're the student. And I'm tired of you preaching your Bible to me on my time.
Mr. DeGrasse, I was just trying to help everyone in the class see. The Bible, while not a science textbook, is remarkably accurate, even written all those years ago. Psalms talks about Jehovah sitting over the circle of the earth. The book of Job brings out that Jehovah is hanging the earth upon nothing.
The earth isn't a circle, Billy. It's an obloid. And it doesn't hang upon nothing. It sits in a gravity pocket, surrounded by the pliable fabric of space and dark matter. This isn't elementary school, Billy. You're in grade 12. We're trying to prepare our students for college.
Well, college, while right for some, is not for Jehovah's people. My future will be walking with the true God. Or more accurately, standing for him, next to a literature cart.
Billy, you're gonna need to get a job after school, don't you understand that?
I've already discussed this with the circuit overseer. He told me I'll be able to find part-time work. Enough to support me in my service and pay my bills. The best way to impress during a job interview is with proper dress and grooming. Good posture.
Billy, you won't be able to find the sloppiest of jobs without a high school diploma, which you will not receive unless you pass this Friday's science test.
You would fail me, Mr. DeGrasse? But I'm your best student. I don't use profanity or swear words. I don't wear tight pants.
I don't give a flip what kind of pants you wear, Billy. And no one else in the real world will either. We're beyond that, can't you see? We're talking about graduation and advancement to a new level. You're a nice kid, but I don't find anything advancing about you. And I can't in good conscience graduate you with the rest of your class unless you demonstrate to me something matching their maturity and responsibility. Unless you complete a full report on the third law of thermodynamics by this Friday, you will not graduate high school with the rest of your classmates. Do I make myself clear?
Hello. And welcome to another edition of JwFairyTales. Well, I just wanted to share some stories with you from the good old Kingdom Hall days. The days of yore in the world of Jehovah. I believe the year was 1991, and I just wanted to share with you a particular experience about a very rich and beautiful family that moved into our congregation. Now, they were tall, good-looking people. A man and his wife. They had 3 beautiful children, and they just showed up at our Kingdom Hall one Sunday. They pulled into the parking lot driving a Lexus. It looked brand new, wearing fine clothing. And as you can imagine, the entire Kingdom Hall was abuzz. Who were these people? They looked so prosperous and well-to-do. What are they doing at our Kingdom Hall? Well, we found out that they were going to be joining our congregation, and it was very exciting. People were whispering during the meeting and looking over their shoulder. And after the meeting, everyone congregated around them to find out who they were. Well, the husband was a salesman who had been relocated to our town by his work very suddenly. And so the family just moved here out of the blue. And in fact, it was also sudden. They hadn't even had time to unpack their Kingdom Hall books and magazines. Well, everyone was very excited, overjoyed, and they all lined up to shake hands and find out more about them. Found out that they had recently purchased this beautiful 2-story house on top of the hill here in town. Gorgeous house. Had a swimming pool, big yard, and this family was very friendly. They wanted to invite the entire congregation over next weekend for a housewarming thing. And I remember our family went too. It was kind of a get acquainted thing, and they had a picnic outside. People were playing. They brought little presents just to get to know them. Well, the husband of the family was a vacuum salesman. He sold Kirby vacuums. if you're not familiar with Kirby vacuums, I mean, let me tell you, these aren't the $50 plastic throwaway shit you buy at Kmart. These are the Cadillac of carpet cleaning. Iron-plated, self-propelled, beautiful machines, and they cost upwards of $900 or $1,000. And the situation was that the Kirby company had a sales territory that this brother was trying to secure the rights to. And the company had set a benchmark for him. If he could sell 60 of these vacuums in 60 days, he would win the territory, and it would just be his to work from then on out, and no one else could come in. So for this coming 2 months, they were just going to have to, get situated there and move into their new house, but also the dad was just having to work furiously to achieve this goal. Their whole moving there depended on it. Well, of course, most people don't have $900 laying around, especially to spend on a vacuum. But some people do. My dad and at least a few other brothers I know of said, well, we can buy one. This is a good purchase. You have this for your whole life. And it's for the good cause of helping out this new family in the hall. We want them to stay. We want it to work out for them. And during this 2-month period, the family was just trying to get into their new house. And they're also having to scramble to meet this goal. And it's so busy, in fact, at the subsequent meeting, the husband wasn't even there. The wife had to come by herself with the kids. The meetings following that, they didn't even show up. They just dropped their kids off. Then they picked them up after the meeting because they were just having to work so hard during this critical time period because they had this quota to meet. And it was getting closer all the time. And I remember as the 60-day period drew near to its close, I remember that even during the local announcements, it was announced that they weren't telling anyone to buy a vacuum, but they mentioned that if you were needing one, well, keep this brother's situation in mind. And, I remember after the meeting, driving home, my dad even said, well, maybe I should get a second one for the downstairs of the house. Him and my mom talked about it. Well, I don't know if they ever did or not. If you're wondering, did this brother make his 60 vacuum goal? Well, I don't know. You see, we never saw the family again. The 60 days came and went, but the new family at our hall never came to the hall ever again after it was over. So, I don't know. I assume they did okay because, we would drive by their house all the time and see the cars still there, but we just never saw them after that. Well, actually, I did see one of their children. I bumped into their 12-year-old son a couple months later at the video store, and he asked me if I had $4 he could borrow because there was a game there he wanted. And I said, sure. I gave him the money, and I just remember that when he was walking out, I noticed that he was wearing an earring. He had an earring in his ear. So, well, you kind of see where this is going. A couple months after that, someone else in the congregation reported that they had seen the new family standing outside of a church one Saturday morning. The family they were all dressed in their meeting clothes, except they weren't at the meeting. They were at a church. So, well, you can probably see what happened here. Apparently this new family were random people that learned the buzzwords of each individual denomination and would rotate from church to church making sales contacts. So, yeah. Well, was there even a quota? Who knows? I don't shake hands with people anymore. I quit doing that. You go to the Kingdom Hall and it's the handshaking thing. They're really big into it. Seems like a ritual that's more habit than anything else. You walk into the Kingdom Hall every Sunday, and it's the same lethargic people standing there shaking each other's hands over and over again like it's the first fucking time they saw each other. They'd see each other 3 times a week, you know, for their entire lives. What are they shaking hands for? But they do it over and over. They just grab each other's hands and start wagging every time. Even the kids do it. It's insane. And how did this practice even begin? I don't even know. Like in the 1800s, I suppose it was a gesture of some sort to denote friendship and cooperation. Well, I would say it's lost all meaning, wouldn't you agree? People at the Kingdom Hall, why do they even do it? What does it denote? What I remember being at JW all the time, being in a situation where I was shaking hands with somebody who wasn't even friendly to me. It wouldn't even smile to me, but we still had to go through this ritual. You walk into the Kingdom Hall and they just say, "Oh, there you are. Let's get this over with." There was really no goodwill instigating it or a happy feeling. It's more of a let's make this. It's like, oh, every Kingdom Hall on Earth you walk into, and it's just this necessary thing that 4 or 5 people have to walk up to you and shake your hand for no friggin' reason. But you have to exchange names and shake hands, even though it's like, well, we don't really want to know you. So, whatever. They shake hands with people they don't like, or people that they're. I mean, think about it. You go to a judicial committee, and the first thing they do is shake hands with everybody. We do it's almost like the Chevy Chase thing where they're shaking hands. And then 5 minutes later, you sit there, and then you confess your sins to them, and they tell you that you're too filthy for them to be counted among you because of the filthiness of your sins. And you're thinking, well, then why did you shake my hand? That doesn't seem very wise, considering I'm filthy. I don't know. It's not about friends or friendly intentions. The shaking hands between Jehovah's Witnesses, it denotes a recognition that we're all bedfellows in the same place. Kind of a peas in the pod thing, I guess. But why would you, I don't know. The reverse of that is, why would you want to touch hands with the Jehovah's Witnesses? Considering that they have a porn problem in their religion. Right? Calm down. Oh, what? They do. The Jehovah's Witnesses now, it's the magazines, the talks, the local needs. It's always about the brothers being corrected and counseled for watching porn. Watching porn. Well, it's not really watching porn that's the problem, is it? I mean, come on. In the talks, they always say, well, the brothers need to, control their viewing of pornography. Viewing porn is an uncleanness we want to avoid. They're acting like it's their eyeballs getting dirty. Well, that's not the part that concerns me. And, well, this is a family show. I don't want to really draw you a picture too much, but the brothers say viewing porn is. I'm thinking they're also rubbing something, playing with something while this is happening. Well, anyway. Next time you go to the hall, I just want you to do a mental exercise that I think will help in this situation. I want you, next time you're at the hall and one of these big fat mustache family man guys wants to shake hands with you, I want you to look down and mentally visualize his open hand slathered with Vaseline. Okay? Imagine him holding a hot dog covered with Vaseline. Next time you consider accepting the literature. He probably had a finger up his butthole at some point during this viewing. Viewing, they call it. viewing. It's not just the porn thing or the molestation scandals. It's everything about the sex life of JWs that is appalling to me and disgusting. I mean, shit, when you go to a Kingdom Hall, you walk in there and every row has these fat married motherfuckers sitting there, and you're just sitting there during the meeting thinking about when they get naked. When they go home, and you're thinking, how do they even do it? These 400-pound motherfuckers at the Kingdom Hall. I mean, don't their tummies get in the way, or what's going on? Oh, it's disgusting to me. I mean, the same way JWs are disgusted by homosexuals in tight pants is how I feel about mustache people in polyester. I'm sorry. It's just something that's always bothered me. If JWs of the opposite gender go into a house alone together, and there's no chaperone or anybody with them, they say, well, brother, we have to presume that you and this sister had sex. We just have to make that assumption based on the fact that you went into this house alone together for 1 hour and then you walked out and this was seen. You're going to have to either confess to it or we have to disfellowship you for being unrepentant. But here's what I don't understand. The brothers are alone together all the time. How come nobody assumes they had gay sex? That's ridiculous. They're not gay, they're serving Jehovah. But aren't the brothers and sisters of opposite gender also serving Jehovah of their own free accord? Well, that's different. How come other people aren't given the same benefit of the doubt as the elders? Well, when I was growing up, the big thing was the gift of singleness. The gift of singleness. I remember when I was 18 or so, sitting in a car group out in service. I guess the people were in their Bible study or whatever, and I'm sitting alone in the car with this guy, and he starts giving me this big come on about the gift of singleness. I remember he said, I envy the gift you have. Sure wish I had that gift. And I said, so you're saying getting married to your wife was a mistake? And he said, no, I didn't mean like that. I just mean I could have done so much more in Jehovah's service had I remained single. And I said, so Ramona's been like a hindrance to you? No, she's like my pioneer partner, if we pioneered. We auxiliary sometimes, but we both know and agree that we could have done so much more with the gift when we had it. Past tense, you understand. And I said, it's the kids you regret. No! My kids are the best thing that ever happened in my life. Look, all I'm saying is that a young brother like you can practically live on air. You could live out of your car and pioneer when you're young. And I said, well, your kids are young. Why doesn't your family just live out of the car and pioneer? No, I didn't mean like that. Well, the problem here with what this JW man was doing is the revisionist, what-ifs, retrospecting thing that JWs are taught to do at assemblies. If you've been to the dramas, they do they have these melodramatic scenes where someone in a crisis situation, if deciding between Jehovah and the world, stumbles and loses their way and says, if only I had heeded the Bible's clear counsel. And the lights go down, the flute music plays, and then a little man comes out on the stage and gives a supplemental talk to follow up. To me, this is a dangerous road to be going down, and I don't think it even occurs to them. The conundrum they are unraveling unwittingly. I remember one public discourse in which the speaker at this assembly was listing off a checklist of this system's ailments, the problems of this old world, and he was giving them a rundown. One of which he took stock of was single mothers having babies, brothers. And I was sitting there in the audience looking around. On both sides of me was children born out of the marriage institution. Everywhere, every direction I was turning in, I was seeing women that were repentant and came back and they had kids. I'm seeing JW grandparents and they have their the little babies bouncing up and down on their lap. Children born out of wedlock. And if the Watchtower had their say, none of these little tots would even be alive. You ever think about that? Well, it expands beyond that. What about your own lineage, you personally? Going back thousands of years, do you really believe that no one in your family tree reproduced without being married first? Come on. No one in the thousands of years of your ancestors fucked before they got married. Well, you know they did. You know that none of us would be alive if Jehovah had his way. Am I right? Am I lying? Going back to Adam and Eve, all the way back, how does it feel to know if you're a religious person, let me ask you, how does it feel to know that your trillions of years of eternity that you've got coming to you wouldn't even be happening if Satan hadn't done you a solid in the garden? Does this paradox bother you at all, or do you just not let it into your mind? If Jehovah's plans had succeeded instead of Satan's plans, you would not have lived. Your children would not live or exist. Oh, they'd exist. They'd just be someone else. Ah, you win. Unbeknownst to most people is that I actually agree with the elders 90% of the time. Sorry, I do. I agree with... This is what JWs don't even realize. I agree with them almost always. Sex outside of marriage is wrong. I just go a little bit further than they do. I take it the extra step. I think sex is wrong altogether. I'm sorry, I just do. Marriage is included. I mean, think about it. Marriage is wrong. People are fornicating. You can't just sign a piece of paper and then think it's okay to have sex. You have... This is how I see it. You have right, you have wrong, and the two do not intersect. When something is wrong, you don't do it 10,000 times and then say, oh, it's okay because we're married. Married people. All I see is fat fucking fornicators. The worst kind of fornicators. They're unrepentant. They get naked with each other over and over again. When do they confess? Shit. Jehovah's organization, they tell you not to get married. Then they always want married men for positions and privileges because that's a family man with clean sexual practices. Shit. You see some of the hogs these guys are married to? You want to tell me that's a clean sexual practice? Come on. You think Jehovah wants to see that, or do you think he turns away? But if you're married, people, they have that, it's a relieving thing about it. They're like, But if you're a single person in the organization, even though they tell you to be single, they're always looking at you out of the corner of their eye because they're wondering, where does your hormonal buildup go? When and where and how does it discharge? What? You're all thinking it. Here's my thing, though. If marriage is if that's the institution that is so great, why is every third talk and every third magazine at the Kingdom Hall talking about how to repair your broken marriage, how to endure your marriage, how to survive as a married person? At what point do you finally admit that the cord of three strands is not stronger than the cord of two? If they keep having talks on how to cope with being married, being the neglected wife of an elder or servant. By the way, what did people do before talks got invented by Jehovah? How were married people getting by for 4,000 years before Awake articles, before JW.org articles? If JW.org is so friggin' great, how come Jehovah didn't invent computers 4,000 years ago so people could have had it to improve their lives? Because it was great. I mean, all the stuff that went down in the Bible, how much of it could have been prevented if Jehovah, well, it's easy for him. He could have waved a magic wand and invented the internet. Why did he have to wait for Satan to come up with the internet, and then he builds upon that? Using computers by people, made by people who refuse to bend their knee to Christ the Lamb. He had to wait for atheists to invent something for him to use. Because his people are burying, busy scooping sand to bury their shit for the Mosaic Code. They weren't inventing computers. But they invented them now. Woo! This JW.org thing is getting cray-cray, isn't it? I mean, people are losing their shit. Nothing is normal anymore. Everyone is going berserk. Every JWC now is like they're reaching nirvana and having a seizure at the same moment. All you have to do is say JW.org. You don't have to wait very long. They'll say, you can't talk to a JW, you can't get 20 seconds into a conversation without JW.org now. Oh, I mean, seriously. I don't think Paradise Earth would have stirred up this sort of jubilation. They're really having the time of their lives. They deserve it. They've been waiting a long time for this. I'll be honest with you, though. I go on there. It's just articles and stuff. I mean, it's just like, it's articles, some music. It's not that big of a deal, really. I mean, they're acting like Christ came back from the grave and he's webcamming. And you can Skype with her. I don't know. Well, it's not about the content. The website is about culmination and containment. The scattered Sudoku history of Jehovah's Witnesses has finally been compressed and streamlined into one interactive presentation model. It can fit into a booth or a cart. All of it. You can swipe it and scan it. Serve God before breakfast. See, in the old days, the old days of debating and explaining everything has been replaced with a clean and simple automatica. Anyone can do it. Don't have to be a genius. You can put a bumper sticker on your car now and say you've served God. Well, not to the extent you wish you could, of course. Not enough to squeak by. Enough to get into the kingdom. Jehovah knows how fast-paced this world has gotten to be. That's why he's making allowances now for his people. Well, these are changing times, and Jehovah's keeping pace. What's important is that we share our valuable things with him. I saw someone with a barcode on their t-shirt that 10 years ago told me they didn't like computers. Quote, I'm quoting them. They didn't like computers because you can't trust them. Never get one. It's had an emboldening nature for people who used to duck field service and tremble at doors. Finally, it's finally here. A one-word answer for people who could never properly express or defend with any fluency what they believe or think they believe. Or someone else believes and they're going along with it. The truth, what they've had spinning in their head every day at work and at school, but can't convincingly convey to anyone in any real fashion. But now, JW.friggin.org, it's the culmination. It's packaged it's all right there in one place. And if you could just get your friend at work to log in, they'd understand too. And they'd be in the same place you are. Seems so much more achievable than the old long shot of getting someone to walk into a Kingdom Hall with you and be impressed, or walk into the convention center and be impressed by the roar of 6,000 people associating in unity. And they could be a part of that too, instead of alone out there in the dirty day-to-day world. If only you could just make that impression for them, then they'd come along too. It's had an adrenalizing effect on non-JWs as well. Oh, or should I say the I'm not a JW, but. I'm not a JW, however, they're right about this and this and this and this and this and this. You may have noticed recently an onslaught of people online who aren't technically Jehovah's Witnesses. They assure you of that, but their family are. And that's how they know it's the truth, because their auntie taught them about the truth a long time ago. And they're not really part of it, but they know deep down that it's the real secret truth of this world, unknown to everyone else. But, you know, for privacy reasons, they're not going to disclose that to you. They're not really Jehovah's Witnesses, baptized, or go out in service, but they are kind of earning their own spot in the kingdom in their own way. Jehovah understands the unique situation. And so they serve him as kind of a double agent. They can kind of vanguard the front lines of the internet for Jehovah's people. Since Jehovah's people are sheep-like and they kind of set off to the side, they'll be the internet warriors that take sides with Jehovah. Something that proved to be difficult and frustrating in previous times, maintaining a pugilistic stance of take on all comers and be ready to make an answer, it's difficult. Having to, look, it's not easy. But even for a JW, let alone a non-JW that doesn't fully understand the doctrines or history, but is having to force their way through a defense of it and bluff their way through everything, and then disappear when the going gets tough, well, it doesn't have to be that way anymore. At last, there is a web page resource that you can just fire off, and it abdicates that burden for you. It alleviates responsibility that you used to have for Jehovah's claims. You don't have to do it anymore. You can complete your service by spreading the message of JW.friggin.org. A one-word fuck you answer to those whose minds are clouded by this world's low sink of debauchery. You don't have to stoop to their level anymore, mess with them, listen to their questions, reject their false stories. You have JW.org. It's great. But here's what I don't understand. Here's what I keep wondering. If the primary objective in these final moments before Armageddon is to warn people and save them, rescue them, ostensibly, well then why are so many resources and donation being used to make cartoons? Cartoons. In the final moments before Armageddon. This seems like mistaken prioritizing to me. Since we're in the final clock tickings before the big ending, which I know they've always said that, but this time we really, really are. It's really, really happening this time. If we are so close to Armageddon, why are Jehovah's Witnesses still having to be the sex police? I mean, the binocular thing where they park outside people's houses, try to catch them in the act, or trying to catch some circumstantial evidence they can present to the elders. Seems like a waste of time in this final push to the finish line. I mean, shit, if somebody's sinning, they're going to go down at Armageddon, right? Armageddon's about to happen and these people are about to get blown up. So why expend so much energy? Instead of going out in service, you'll be using this time to try to confirm their sins, trying to document their sexual liaisons. can Jehovah not destroy them without the paperwork that you have to provide? You're Jehovah's secretary. You have to do the paperwork on other people's sex so that Jehovah can seal the deal. Do him in. I don't know. When you consider that each one of us commits Adamic sin 50 to 100 times a day, and any one of those sins will get you killed every day. Even unborn babies that haven't even done anything yet have been condemned guilty based on their DNA. I've yet to hear a cogent explanation of why Jehovah's Witnesses needed to appoint themselves the sex cops. How did it come about in their Bible study they realized that sex is the one sin that's worse than all the others and will keep you out of the kingdom? Oh, there's lots of sins, but sex is the only one Jehovah cares about. And so they have to spend 99% of their time on sex? I'd like to know when and where did Jehovah entrust them with the task of looking into people's sex lives, categorizing the encounters, listing them in a tally, determining which is worse than the other, based on their record keeping, who will escape death and who won't. Considering Jesus' own words that no one on earth is good, why is it that the Watchtower feels compelled to ferret out those less good than them and make them pay a personal Armageddon before the real one? By the way, isn't it amazing how all the other JWs in the world keep having sex and getting busted? They keep getting their helmets polished and getting caught, but the governing body never do. They just don't do that. We're different than the rest of you. We just don't do that sort of thing. It's not that we don't get caught. We just never get our, helmets waxed. Well, if you've been around the religion, then you already know. There's two types of JWs. The ones that get judged and the ones that do the judging. And they rarely overlap. You see, the JW leaders, the elders, the governing body, they're not perfect, and they'll be the first to admit that. They never claim to be perfect. They're sinful humans. For example, they fall short in many ways, like sometimes they'll lose their temper a little bit. Sometimes they fall short by coming home after a long day of serving Jehovah and, they maybe don't listen to their wife enough. Don't spend enough time with their wife and their family. Sins like that. Whereas you people, when you sin, it's things like getting buck naked, screwing. So you kind of see the difference there. And so that's why the top 1 percentile that sins are much smaller than yours. In fact, you couldn't even really call them sins. We just call them errors and imperfections. These top dogs take the lead in shepherding the rest of us. And they utilize resources such as the local needs talks you may have heard. Have you been to the Thursday night meetings? I'm recalling one very beautiful local needs part. The brother on stage was advising the JW women in the congregation to be on the lookout for any stains or puddles on their children's sheets. Any traces of semen you may come across while doing your wifely duties of laundry. Or you may even see it on your teenager's underwear, a semen stain. And if you come across it, let the elders know so they can do their duty there. Just a reminder, if you have a teenager in the home, they're probably masturbating, so be on top of that. I remember another local needs in which the issue at hand was the serious problem of little boys during the meeting having their hands in their pockets and they'd be playing pocket pool in the Kingdom Hall. And I remember, calm down. I didn't give the talk, I'm just telling you that. I remember the guy on stage, he was trying to dance around at first with some descriptives but after a couple minutes, he finally just came out and said, well, people call it pocket pool. You need to watch your child to make sure they're not doing that in the hall. What? What? I'm just telling you about it. There was one local needs good God, I must have been 10 years old, 9, in which the elder was explaining about how if two people were to masturbate back to back, that would in fact be considered pornea, which is much more serious than your garden variety solo masturbation, which is a minor sin. And I'm in grade school. I don't even know what back to back means. But I just remember the turn of phrase. It stuck with me. So, yeah, apparently some people in the congregation didn't understand that doing it back to back, while thrilling, is also technically pornea, crosses over into that. And we got it re-clarified for them. I feel like being a JW kid, I probably overheard a lot of things I shouldn't have, especially being an elder son. I remember one phone call that happened early in the morning. 5 a.m., the phone at our house rings. My dad answers, and it's this guy from the Kingdom Hall, and he's distressed because here's what happened. He had constipation, really bad constipation during the night, and apparently he was in such agony and distress that he cursed God while sitting on the toilet. I guess he looked up to the ceiling and cursed Jehovah for not helping him. Well, sometime during the duration of the night, apparently he finally squeezed out this rock and felt relief, but then realized and he called Dad frantically because he was scared that he had committed the unforgivable sin, and so he wanted to call my dad and confess, and then my dad was going to make it okay. And my dad is a very accommodating guy that listens to people and helps them, but I remember Dad said, I can't help you. If you feel you may have committed the unforgivable sin of blaspheming Jehovah's Spirit, then there is no hope. That's the scriptural answer. He was worried that he had blasphemed, and now he said, "You're telling me that and he was very upset, but I don't know. He wanted Dad to give him absolution, but he couldn't. He just scripturally couldn't. And he said, "You're telling me I'm going to have to go through the rest of my life serving Jehovah and not knowing if I've been condemned for unforgivable sin?" And Dad said, "Sorry." I remember that somebody called our house during dinner, and Dad answered the phone, and it was this guy named Mike from the Kingdom Hall. And Mike was married to this sister named April, and they had kind of a rocky marriage, been together for a few years. Apparently Mike had this acoustic guitar that he played, and that was his thing. And he came home after work, and she had moved the guitar and just like put it behind the couch, and it was upside down, and he felt like the guitar was disrespected. And she said something snappy back to him, and he just popped her, just cocked back his fist and just popped her in the mouth. And I guess she ran out the door and ran to this witness family that lives a couple blocks down, and she stayed there. She did, and Mike called up because she said she's not coming home. And Mike wanted my dad to go down there, bring her back, or tell her to go back, or whatever. And I remember my dad said, "I'm not going to do that. You did something wrong. And this is, this is the consequence." And Mike said, "Well, you gotta help our family and everything." So Dad, our family, the thing was, our family was going to go to the drive-thru that evening. We had plans. Dad got up during the dinner, answered the JW phone, the Batman phone, and then he had to run out the door. My mom wasn't happy. Dad did not return to the house until 12:30 in the morning, and I'd already gone to, everyone's in bed, but I was just hearing this through the open door when he came in. Everything's dark, and this is the days before cell phones, so Mom didn't even know what was going on. And Dad said, "Well, you know that being a JW family, we have to make sacrifices." And she was like, "Well, you forgot all about our family, went to help their family." And Dad said, well, you knew that being an elder's wife is about making sacrifices. But this is a sacrifice that you and the children are making for Jehovah. And the phone rang. It was Mike's number. Dad said, I've talked to him for hours. I'm not picking it up. Well, the machine picks up. Beep. Jimbo, it's Mike. Thanks for being there for me, man. I just wanted to tell you, Hakuna Matata. What a wonderful phrase. It means no worries for the rest of your days. She's gonna be all right, Jim. The next thing I heard, it's dark, I'm just hearing this through an open door, but it sounded like my mother stomping and storming down the hallway like I've never heard before. And then slamming the bedroom door so hard the whole house shook.
Dear Diary, I rode my bike to the Kingdom Hall after school, so I could talk to the gifts and men from Jehovah, or as we call them, the elders. They have judicial committees lined up all week, but Brother Watcher said he could make a few minutes for me, so he could advise me on the persecution I'm facing at school. Thanks for meeting with me, Brother Watcher.
I'm always glad to help a young man.
Well, I've been having difficulty balancing my schoolwork with my service to Jehovah. It's at the point where I may not graduate. I've tried using resources from Jehovah's organization, but it almost seems like it's making things worse.
Making things worse? I don't follow.
Well, for example, a couple of weeks ago, I reported to my class that Jehovah's Witnesses are the fastest growing religion on earth. I was almost laughed out of the building. My teacher had to get out an almanac and show me that many other religions are increasing and growing faster than Jehovah's people.
Other religions? Increasing? The only thing increasing is their wickedness. It's multiplying in Jehovah's face. Do these mega churches you see on every street impress you, Billy? Are you starstruck by them? Will you still be impressed by their numbers when their bodies litter the ground like Sennacherib's soldiers? Will you, Billy?
I didn't mean anything like that.
Jehovah's people are increasing, and we will inherit this earth. Even when one of us dies, two more rise up in his place. Jehovah's people live forever. The choice to live forever is what stands before you, Billy. If you want to impress this teacher man at your worldly school, that's up to you. But just remember, Jehovah's watching you. And guess what? I'm gonna be watching you too.
Understood was on the leaked elders video with Robbie, who confesses to, he goes to the elders and confesses that he had sex with a woman that seduced him at a sandwich shop, and it's an instructional video on how the elders don't forgive people for their sins. Well, it's unrepentant sins. You see, you wouldn't have done it if you were really sorry, so they know you're not sorry, no matter how many times you said it. I just, I keep thinking of Ephesians or whatever, where Paul is saying, what I wish to do is not what my body will let me do. Apparently this man's body was out of control. And he's writing this all down and telling you that his intentions and what he plans on doing is not what his body turns out to be doing. He had a thorn in the flesh, whatever that means. I don't want to know. I don't want to know about this thing that's sticking into his flesh. But apparently he had something going on there that he didn't want to talk about. But he was trying to be good, but just wasn't working out for him. You understand? Hey, Jehovah understood that. Hey, it was Jehovah that... This guy didn't even want to be a Jehovah's Witness. He was a bad guy. Jehovah or Jesus or whatever showed up on the road and said, "You, I choose you," like Pokemon. And he wasn't even. And now you got Jehovah's Witnesses trying to be servants of Jehovah, and they're saying, "Nope, you didn't do it right. You didn't make the cut." But it just underscores the. I don't know. So this guy he's Jehovah. He's Jehovah's main man, and he is telling you that he can't control himself, can't control his urges. But it's okay, because that was a different time. For me, it underscores the kind of bizarre nature of the JW legal system and how it all works, how it all goes down. The judicial panel, the judicial committee, it's done on a local level. In other words, people that already know you, probably have known you for years, known everything you've done wrong ever, and formed opinions about you, good or bad. They see you 3 times a week, every day for years, and now they're going to judge you. How could that be impartial? I'm sure you probably even heard examples of people who were wrongly disfellowshipped based on bad info. It happens. Well, they say it's Jehovah's justice because Jehovah is meting out the justice. They say a prayer in the back room, and then Jehovah blesses the situation. He blesses their decision because it's actually his decision, you see? He's just doing it through them. And his Holy Spirit is actually what has the final word. I'm thinking of an example. You probably have something in your own hall, or own passages to this history. I remember somebody that got wrongly DF'd because their marriage mate framed them. You see, there was these 2 people in the hall that wanted to get rid of their marriage mates and then hook up with each other, and they sabotaged their own marriages it was just this thing that they were going to go through and then rebuild their lives. And so this woman set this guy up, made up false evidence to get him disfellowshipped, and it came out later that she had done all this beforehand, but he got disfellowshipped for it. Now this is a mistake. This is a wrong thing that happened. This isn't even like new light or progressive light where Jehovah let you think the wrong thing and then he fixed it later. This was just wrong. It's not new light that you just weren't ready to understand it yet. It was something that was just wrong. And it doesn't make sense. And JWs will tell you, though, well, there's a human element there on individual occasions. After they just finished telling you that there isn't one. This is Jehovah's doing, not the human elements. It's Jehovah. You're disfellowshipping me, brothers? No, Jehovah's disfellowshipping you. Well, it's a composite verdict. Part Jehovah and part imperfect men. So you see, it's kind of a 50-50 thing there, a partnership. Almost as if Jehovah became unevenly yoked with beer-belly mustache men who meet with you in the back room and make bad calls sometimes. It can't be helped. What? Jehovah's organization isn't perfect. You knew that. It goes down like this. When no one can prove that the controversial call was wrong, then Jehovah is credited for having to make the hard call, which was also the right call. But when it can be proved, or it does get found out that it was wrong, then it was it was indeed the elders that made that decision. It was chalked up to the 50% of the equation that's the elders' half and just imperfection. The ball was on that side of the net that time, you see. Jehovah's Holy Spirit was in the room. It just wasn't strong enough to overcome the imperfections of those men. Their brains were clouded and not receiving Jehovah's reception that day, or it just didn't come through, or something happened. But what we know is that the elders were still right. Even though the decision was technically incorrect, it was still right because Jehovah allowed it to be that way. You You see? So you still have to stand by Jehovah's arrangement and his doings. Also, please do not bring up incidents like these, because Jehovah doesn't like it when you make his people look bad. When you talk down about his human vessels, look, everybody blows it sometimes, but you still have to take side with Jehovah, remain with him, because, well, just for the obvious reason that Jehovah forbids you from saying anything that's less than positive. You know, the whole thing could run smoother, in my opinion, if Jehovah just handled these judicial processes in his own way and himself, instead of just take the human element out of it. That's what I'm saying. I'm not complaining about disfellowshippings. I'm all for them. Just let Jehovah do it. That's what I'm saying. You could put up a whiteboard. Jehovah just writes. What? He could pick up a pen and write. So he's not going to. Just take my idea, Jehovah, is just take the humans completely out of the computation. Get it right every time. He could do that. Sure. But Jehovah, the thing about him is he doesn't really do stuff like that. He shies away from situations that would inadvertently prove his existence. He doesn't like that. He's very precocious about the whole thing. He doesn't like it when it's revealed that he is real. Well, he likes people talking about how real he is, but he can't allow it to happen that it would actually be confirmed, because he's very, very proud of his name, but not so much that he would confirm his existence. That's going too far. He loves glory and glorifying himself naturally, but just not to the extent of doing something that would make you believe he actually exists and is not imaginary. I'm sure you would agree that would be going a little too far. And it's just not the best way to do things. And it's not necessary either, because Jehovah's people are, by course, the most forgiving and most merciful and biblical people in Christ-like on earth, so it's just not necessary. I'm wondering, though, maybe one of you can tell me, what is it you can be forgiven 77 times for? Because I've been racking my brain trying to think of it. I spent my whole life in Jehovah's Kingdom. I don't know of what you can do 77 times. Because we know it's not sins. Well, then what is it? Clicking your pen at the meeting? Could you do that 77 times? Nobody's saying, no. They wouldn't even let you do that, right? What is it you can do these 77 times? And they say, I just keep turning the other cheek. When have you heard anyone at the Kingdom Hall say, well, let's let bygones be bygones? After all, we are the good old Jehovah's Witnesses, and that's what we're famous for. Letting things slide. I know all about your sins, but don't worry, I won't tell anyone or bring it up, because it's none of my business, and I have a rafter in my own eye. When have you heard? Oh, I'm sure you've heard that many times at the Kingdom Hall, and people will walk up and tell you that. Well, they'll also tell you that they do forgive. You saying they don't forgive people is not true. They do forgive. But the burden is yours. You understand? It has to start with you. You follow through on the process of disfellowshipping, and during that duration of time, where they make a point not to forgive you, as a reminder that they could forgive you later after you do stuff for them. I mean, for Jehovah. I remember one elder, and this seemed very improper to me, but apparently it was all nice and legal. Well, this elder was practicing amateur psychiatry without a license. Calm down. And, of course, he did not go to college or have any training for this, but he felt that his on-the-job experience working as one of Jehovah's shepherds gave him this skill and qualification. And this was not a hobby for him. He had a job, quit his job, and this was his living now. He even had an office. He had a little building with an office. And yes, if you're wondering, all of his customers or patients or whatever you want to call them were, of course, people in the congregation. And it was kind of an openly known, unwritten, unspoken thing that if you were having a problem, like family problems, drinking problem, or something you shouldn't be doing, and you could sense that you were about to get busted or trouble was about to go down, you could use this as an out. This was a way out, and people took advantage of it. I think that's how he got away with it legally, that he never used the word psychiatry. He called himself a family therapist or some friggin' thing. Well, his business card said neighborhood therapist. I remember. You remember in the 90s and early 2000s when every friggin' JW had a business card? People finally they finally realized they could get some shitty card stock and print up their own business cards, and that would mean they're in business. It was always some fucking thing like technical support advisor, management, and it would just mean it, but they felt like they had this business out of their home because they were able to use their home printer to make a business card and hand it to everyone. And they were always the business card always said owner and CEO, president. Well, this elder printed up business cards, and apparently that made him a neighborhood psychologist. Well, this was a kind of a miniature industry for this guy in the congregation. Turned out to be his bread and butter because it was a large congregation. If anyone had sinned or had been found out or caught, they could act preemptively, sign up for his therapy session, and would meet with him once a week or whatever, or once a month. And this would count also as meeting with an elder, you see. And if the sin came to light or their marriage mate found out what they had been doing secretly or whatever, they say, oh, I've been getting therapy, been getting this work through brother so-and-so. It's beautiful. This was a loophole that the JWs, and it was like a get-out-of-jail-free card. It's like paying for a high-powered lawyer. Well, the money hurts, but you know it's worth it, because you're not going to go to jail. Well, anyway, I didn't understand this situation at the time. I was young. I was like 22. I didn't understand anything about this. This elder invited me over to his house one evening. He had a home office there. I didn't even know what was going on, but we sat. It was like an Alan Thicke thing, a la Family, or what is the friggin' show? Growing Pains. He had this office in his house where he counseled people. I don't remember much of it. Seemed like he mostly talked about how awesome his life as an elder is and how a young person like me can aspire to have the same opportunities as him when I get to be his age, if you start young. And it was, I don't know. I felt indifferent to the whole thing. I guess it went okay. But a week later, I got a bill in the mail. Bill. He billed me. I guess he got my address out of the Kingdom Hall records. I wasn't even expecting. I opened the letter. It's a bill for $100. The next day I showed it to someone and they said, oh, only $100. It's usually $120. He gave you the Pioneer discount. I wasn't mad or anything. I was more mystified than anything else. I just didn't know what to make of it. At the time, I mean, I'm looking back in retrospect now, but I guess over the years I did come to resent this elder, which I never even really saw him again. I transferred out of the hall not long after that, but, you know, even to this day, I still remember him and will be thinking to myself, you know, this corny guy, I mean, he's like a Monty Python character or something. I still see the shit-eating grin he had on his face, Kingdom Hall, walking around, walking up to families and, you know, exploiting them, advising them to come see him. I was still just like visualize him sometimes and be thinking, this guy kills people at Armageddon because he sits on the judicial committees. These guys that are elders Sunday morning and then the rest of the week they're garage door installers. But then they go into the back room and make decisions about the outcome of your everlasting future. You trust the JWs with your future, your life and death and salvation? Because the JWs I know, I wouldn't trust them to dog sit. Let me ask you a serious question here. I'm being serious about this. Think of an elder in your hall. Think of any elder that you know. Would you trust him to take a bow and arrow and shoot an apple off your head? No? But you'll go into the back room and trust him to decide whether you live at Armageddon or not. Which do you think God would say is easier, by the way? Calm down. I have a friend I was talking to. His name's Gavin. I've told you about him before. We grew up together. He's disfellowshipped now. He's been disfellowshipped for quite some time. Well, he was telling me a story about the old days as JW and how stuff went down. he and his wife were having, this is the end of their marriage, they're having all these problems, and they've separated. And he has also become inactive. And the elders are really stressing that they want to see him, and he just doesn't want to do it because he's not living right. He started dating this worldly woman. They haven't slept together or anything, but he's dating her. His estranged wife suspects it, and she's clued in the elders, and they keep trying to call him. He doesn't answer, and he just wants to avoid the situation, not think about it. Well, I guess this one night he's over at his worldly girlfriend's apartment. It's about 10:30 at night, and she wants to. It's late, but she's cold, and she wants her sweatshirt out of the car because it's winter. And she's in her apartment building, and he walks all the way down. This is a downtown setting, so her car is a couple blocks down, and he's walking across the street, getting her sweatshirt out of the car. And he has the door open. When he looks up, cars zooming by. He looks up for a moment. Through the window, it's an elder. The elder sees his face. It's dark. He's wearing a hoodie. But it looked, just that moment where he saw the look on the elder's face, it seemed like he recognized him. And the car's zooming by, and then about half a block down, tires screech. This elder realizes that he saw an inactive, irregular person that's not reporting to them, and this is a little pink car that belongs to a woman, obviously, and he's getting a woman's sweatshirt out of it. Car screeches and stops. Then he throws it reverse and starts backing up at 30 miles an hour. Well, Gavin told me he just slammed the door to the car and ran, beelines it, sprints as fast as he's ever run in his life. Well, this elder is it's tires screeching, driving backwards through the street, running after him, and he jumps over a bush, and he's running down the sidewalk with his hoodie covering his face so he can't see. Well, this elder parks his car in the street, swings open the door, jumps out, starts running after him. And Gavin runs into the apartment building, and he's going up flights of stairs. One flight of stairs behind him is this elder running right behind it. It's like an Alfred Hitchcock movie or something. He's running up these stairs, and he's right behind him. Then he tears down the hall. He swings open his girlfriend's door, and just as he is entering and slamming the door behind them, the elder comes down the hallway. He's in there, and his girlfriend is like, "What's happening?" He's like, "Shh, shh, I'll explain later. Just don't make a sound." Well, elder starts pounding on the door. Girlfriend doesn't understand what's happening. He said, "You remember I said, I'm a Jehovah's Witness? I'll tell you later, but just don't make a noise." He stresses to his girlfriend, it's vitally important not to even breathe. Silence. The pounding on the door continues as they sit there quietly. This is a little studio apartment. They're just sitting there waiting for it to stop. He tells her, "Don't even look through the peephole." He was watching, they had this little clock radio there. They're watching the minutes pass by. It's 10:30. It's 10:45 when the knocking finally stops. They had to wait 20 minutes while this elder stood there banging on the door before he finally left. Gavin's telling me about this, and I'm like, "Why didn't you just have your girlfriend call the police?" He said, "I can't call the police on an elder. That's an elder." I said, he's not an elder. He's just a guy banging on some woman's door in the middle of the night. Police would have taken him away. And, well, Gavin didn't. I don't know. I guess the whole idea was that maybe he didn't see him or recognize him, so he escaped that situation. Well, anyway, Gavin finally did come clean about a year and a half later. He didn't want to. It was a family thing. He didn't want to do a judicial committee just because of the embarrassment. He couldn't do it. And so he never did his judicial meeting, but he did write the letter. He wrote his letter of disassociation, or just, he didn't explain anything in there. He just went to the Kingdom Hall, and there was two elders there, and he handed them the letter, and they say, "You understand what this means?" And he said, "Yes." Well, anyway, he's leaving the Kingdom Hall. The elders are walking him out. He's about to get his coat. Well, this elder The same elder that had seen him that night and tried to run him down is standing there by the door. I don't know if he wants to say goodbye or what's happening, but Gavin's about to leave the Kingdom Hall, and this elder is looking at him right in the eyes. Then he leans forward and whispers something in his ear. If my shoes hadn't been untied that night, I would have got you. It's a gotcha system, Jehovah's Witnesses. It's not a forgiveness system. It's always about that gotcha moment. Ta-da, motherfucker. Jehovah's Witnesses, they love it. It's how they cut their chops. It's a network of spies and snoops on a mission for Jehovah. Car groups in service. Gossiping about inactive ones. Stalking them. One group I was in, and I'm not even kidding about this, we spent 40% of our time, not exaggerating, we spent 40% of our time every week out in service, driving past people's houses, trying to catch a glimpse of something. Inactive people, disfellowship people, it was like a magazine route. We'd do the circuit around the town, driving past their places of business, their residences, trying to, catch anything we could. In case there was anything improper going down, then we could, tell the elders. Can turn you into the elders. And because this was something that we were doing for Jehovah, we counted it as time. I remember one girl I used to know in Kansas City, she was getting tracked online by an elder. And she hadn't even been associated for years. She was a publisher once when she was 14. Then her mom quit going to the hall 10 years ago. Hasn't been to a Kingdom Hall in 10, 12 years. She's getting cyber stalked now by an elder. This is what he does with his time. I've heard stories of elders creating phony profiles on dating sites to entrap people. It's like they're doing a sting operation. I've heard it's like To Catch a Predator, except with Jehovah's Witnesses, it's to catch a lonely person. I've heard stories of busy elders delegating this responsibility to the rank and file JWs, and tasking them to keep tabs and track the doings of certain disfellowship people. It's a mysterious thing. Truly, Jehovah's world is one of danger and intrigue. It's a cat and mouse game, you see? A cat and mouse game that never ends. It only thickens and complexifies with every turn. I've heard stories of people that would see a former associate of theirs from the Kingdom Hall standing on the other side of the street, and they would be trying to approach them, and the person would shout from the other side of the street, "Wait! Are you still a JW?" And then they start backing away. Well, like it or not, you just have to admit, Jehovah's Witnesses is a me-first culture. Me and my household. And it's how they're taught to be. Jehovah's Witnesses are taught to cover their own ass and keep you at arm's length. Your brothers at the Kingdom Hall, your family at the Kingdom Hall. You think these people would lay down their life for you? After the announcement, they won't even make eye contact with you. Jesus died for you. The JWs aren't even going to say hello to you at the supermarket. Because what's that going to do for them? And their spirituality. How's that going to help them get into the kingdom? Improve their chances? And why would they jeopardize their reward for the likes of you? I'd just like to remind you of one last thing. Next time you're reading the book Survival into a New Earth, published by the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. The evolution model is based on survival of the fittest. The Christianity model is based on him seeking to save his soul will lose it.
Dear Diary, it's Thursday, and this morning I found a note on my locker from my teacher. telling me to go straight to his classroom. You wanted to see me, Mr. DeGrasse? I turned in my paper a day early. It's on your desk.
Billy, I'm very disappointed in you. This isn't a report. It's an article from JW.org you copy and pasted, titled, "The Heavens Are Firmly Established to Times Indefinite." This is the opposite of what I assigned to you.
Mr. DeGrasse, I'm just trying to help you see the Bible and science harmonize. Jehovah is the inventor of science, after all, and his word tells us of a new heavens and new earth where death will be no more. This paradise earth will be his footstool for eternity.
Billy, this earth is doomed, and the heavens, quote unquote, are destroying themselves as we speak.
Oh, what are you talking about?
This world and everything we see around us, even our own brief existence, is a flashing illusion. The stars we see in the sky, although they seem fixed into place, are actually glowing embers from a massive super explosion distant years ago. Everything we see around us is cooling off, separating, dying. This world is doomed.
Oh, I don't believe that. Jehovah won't allow that to happen.
Jehovah be damned. I'm telling you, even our own solar system will destruct when our sun burns out as supernovas.
Maybe that will happen to some other planets or some other place, but Jehovah has a special purpose for our world, and he can refuel our sun and keep it burning as long as he wants to.
Billy, smell the coffee. Our entire galaxy is on a collision course with another galaxy. Why would Jehovah do that? Both of our galaxies, by the way, are being consumed by supermassive black holes. Did Jehovah think about that? Why would he put them there? The entire universe will eventually be erased by black holes 100 trillion years from now, which themselves will deradiate and become nothing. An empty vacuum of particles that themselves will burn out and become nothing. Why would Jehovah do that, Billy?
I don't believe any of this. This is just worldly wisdom, which is foolishness to God. I don't believe it's going to happen.
In a scientific sense, it already has happened, Billy. You see, atomic scientists experimenting with isolated particles in a controlled setting have proven that future events that have not yet occurred are affecting our present just as much as the past, leading them to conclude that what we perceive as time is actually being projected from both directions like a holographic plate.
Huh?
Time is something we construct in our own minds to cope with the limitations of a reality we are not yet fully evolved enough to understand.
Oh, Satan's system would come up with something like that. It's a trick. The whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one, trying to stumble us out of the race for life.
You think I'm trying to trick you, Billy? You think the entire scientific community is conspiring together to trick Jehovah's Witnesses out of eternal life?
Well, not consciously, but you see, Satan's operating you like a ventriloquist dummy.
You think I'm a dummy?
That came out wrong. I meant that your mind is clouded by Satan's fog. It's like a spell of darkness that blinds the whole world.
I see. And are you blinded by this darkness as well, Billy?
Well, no. Jehovah's people can think and see clearly. We're the only ones.
Well, then here's what I propose. Why don't we go this evening to the school observatory? Its telescope is equipped with instrumentation measuring stellar light and radiation,
You can look through the eyepiece and tell me what you see. I won't tell you, you tell me. And then you will know the truth for yourself. Well, I can't. Tonight is Thursday. We have the service meeting in Theocratic Ministry School. What, pray tell, is a ministry school? Well, it's when they show us presentations we can memorize and use at doors. Billy, I'm just going to put it out on the table. I'm a teacher because I care about my students. It breaks my heart to think of you wasting your young life peddling that retarded magazine at doors for a company that won't even pay you a penny. Mr. DeGrasse, if what you're talking about is true, then what's the point? None of this matters anyway. I think that's the crossroad you're standing at, Billy. Considering all you've learned in my class, will you continue deluding yourself with promises of a paradise world? Or will you man up and strive to find meaning and purpose, despite knowing your time on the clock is limited? Come with me tonight, Billy. We'll look at the stars. I promise. You'll learn enough to pass your test this Friday. You'll graduate. And you might even expand your personal horizons a bit. You'll have a good time. Join me. All right, Mr. DeGrasse. I'll meet you at the observatory at 7:30. Good man. Dear Diary, my teacher wanted me to meet him at some telescope. But wisely, I did not show up. I almost fell into Satan's trap. But then I remembered the refreshing teachings of my young boyhood, and I raised myself up erect. As for you and yours, do as you will. But I will renew my dedication and spend the remaining months before Armageddon in whole-souled service to Jehovah. Good boy, Billy. Remember, Jehovah's watching you. All of you. And guess what? The brothers are gonna be watching you too.
Sing to Jehovah, His great name is highly exalted. His proud Egyptian foes He has cast into the
next to Mr. Quesada, which is one of the representatives of the News Service Department here at Jehovah's Witnesses. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today.
It's my pleasure too.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us. I have actually, in my opinion, experienced an extraordinary event. So many happy, smiling people that I've never really seen before. Never seen so many handicapped people.
To him. So he rips the package open and he pulls out the contents, amongst which is Polaroid pictures. And these pictures, I'm going to try to say this delicately. Apparently, a man had pulled down his pants, taken a Polaroid camera, and took photos of his private parts and mailed them to this teenage girl. Well, and these were graphic photos. I mean, he lifted up his bag. Included in the package he pulls out just a rambling 10-page letter, just lustful, passionate writings to this high school girl, Jenny. And he was just very graphic, hardcore, passionate writings. Apparently, Jenny had a secret admirer. And this has been going on for a couple of months. She didn't tell her parents about it. She imagined that a worldly boy at her school had an interest in her but was too shy to ask her out or something. She would come to her car after school and there would be a flower sitting on the roof of the car. Another time she came out and there was a box of cherry cordials. She looked around and said, "Oh, some worldly boy likes me." Well, it turns out that this was a grown man, if you know what I mean. Well, he's hung like a horse. You're asking, well, did the JW parents call the police? Well, no. They called the elders. You see, Jehovah's Witnesses do not like getting the police involved in kingdom matters. They're very reticent to call the police. Now, let me help you understand this. If, say, if you're a Jehovah's Witness and something gets stolen from your car, well, of course you call the police because a worldly person took it and the police can go out and try to find it. But when something is occurring inside Jehovah's organization, no matter how bad it is, they don't like to get the police involved because you don't want to bring that into Jehovah's world because it's a disgrace and they don't like the publicity. And so JWs are instructed to call the elders, let them take care of it. Well, this was, and it was quickly deduced that this was indeed a kingdom issue that was happening. You see, this rambling a letter that was scribbled out on notebook paper was a combination of pulp romance combined with alliterations from the Song of Solomon, specifically the New World Translation version of the Book of Solomon. And because of other jargon and lingo that was in the letter, it was written in the pure language of Jehovah's Witnesses. And it was determined that this man who had a fascination and fixation with Jenny was, in all likelihood, a man at the Kingdom Hall. And immediately they called the elders, and the elders assembled a task force to investigate the situation. And more letters came. In fact, every couple of days there'd be new letters in the mail. Just passionate, lustful writings. Well, the body of elders determined that in all likelihood this was a Hispanic man. You see, in his writings, he kept referring to he was obsessed with his genitals, and he kept referring to them as his man part, which is something a Latino man there watching her. Well, she's scared to death. She runs inside as fast as she can. The next day at the meeting, she again tells the elders what happened, and they tell her that they are going to assign a security detail to her. There's another one of these situations where they decide, instead of calling the police, that they are going to circle the wagons, close ranks, and take care of business. Jehovah takes care of his own. And this newly baptized sister has, in all likelihood, her ex-husband, still obsessed with her, harassing her. Well, the elders are going to regulate. And they tell her what they're going to do is have the elders take turns driving past her house every couple of hours and keep an eye out for this character, whoever he is standing out there in the shadows. And in fact, one of the elders is custom fit for this assignment. Stanley, that I was telling you about, he is a young elder, very popular, charming man. Tall guy, well-dressed, he wears very fancy clothes, very popular, and he's very reassuring. And he volunteered for the assignment. He said, I'd be happy to check in on her. What he's going to do, whenever, and the elders gave Marietta Stanley's phone number and said, whenever you see this character out there following you around, watching you, call Stanley, and he'll do a circuit around the area, do a perimeter, and check everything out. And Marietta immediately begins taking advantage of this situation, and at first it was once or twice a week she would call and say, oh, I see someone out there, oh, but pretty soon it was getting to be an almost every night thing where she was calling and saying, oh, Stanley, Stanley. Here's the thing. Stanley is married to a woman named Kelly. Kelly's not naive. She's not a stupid woman. And she could kind of see what was actually maybe going on here. Marietta, single woman at the hall, and her husband, Stanley. This isn't the first time a woman has tried to get a little attention from her husband, being a very tall, charming elder. She could kind of see what direction this was going in. That, look, women can kind of perceive, the JW women in the hall were like, oh, she has a stalker, huh? A stalker. Look, you in the audience, let me ask you, any woman you know, if you walk up to them and say, hey, do you have a stalker? They say, oh yeah, I have a stalker. What woman you know doesn't have a stalker? Well, the JW women at the hall, specifically Kelly, felt that this seemed like a ploy of Marietta's to garner attention from the brothers, and that she was always, oh, I need to be rescued. Well, being an elder's wife, Kelly just bit her tongue and sat back. And it seemed to be getting worse week after week. Marietta kept calling Stanley, and then Stanley would run to the rescue. Well, it came to a crisis point. Finally, one Friday evening, Kelly receives a voicemail from Stanley. You see, that Friday evening, he had gone to the Kingdom Hall for an elders meeting. They had a brief elders meeting, following which he was going to go deliver magazines to some of the older ones in the congregation, which he does typically once a month. Well, he calls after the meeting has concluded and tells Kelly that he is going to be late. Don't expect him because he's going to have to go by Marietta's again, because apparently she was taking a shower, and when she got out of the shower, she saw that a man was watching her through.
Huh? Hey, is that guy? What is this? What's this guy doing on my computer? Jehovah Bear, if you had something to do with this, chill out. Why does the web address say JW.org? Just relax.
This guy's cool if you give him a chance.
I told you I don't like him.
Lighten up, man. Just get into the music. Let go. Release all thought.
What will bring Jehovah's kingdom?
Triumph of truth and righteousness.
And bring what else? Jehovah's kingdom.
Eternal life and happiness. Praise the universal sovereign for his love and faithfulness.
I don't like this guy.
Come on. Get into it. Oh, yeah.
He's like a pedophile.
That's in the sweet spot.
He's like a father to me.
Yeah.
This guy's awesome. I don't care what you say.
Soul music. Soul music, motherfuckers. Damn.
Don't understand anything. I could teach you
Here's
something
that
about
shit.
righteousness.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. I want to hear you say, huh?
Yeah. This guy speaks to me. I understand where he's coming from.
Triumph of truth and righteousness.
And bring what is Jehovah's kingdom.
Eternal life and happiness. Praise the universal sovereign for his love and faithfulness.
This guy's a pervert. I should call the
I'm
cops.
gonna get some. Not doing the limbo.
Don't do that.
Oh, yeah. Bring that shit in. Hell to the, oh, yeah.
What's he doing?
Oh, here it comes. Riding that shit like a sound
I don't know what that
wave.
was, but yeah.
I'm riding the Google wave right now.
That's
Hell to
wrong.
the,
I don't care, I still like
It's
it.
like sex, but even better. This is like sex, Jehovah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, hitting every inch of that. Oh, yeah. Oh, here comes another one. Here comes one more.
It's gross.
Oh, now we're going to do it from this side. To the left, to the left. To the front, to the front.
The universal.
What's your problem with this guy anyway?
For his love
He's just spreading the word to people.
faithfulness.
You can learn something from it. Something about righteousness.
Involving a JW family, a man and his wife, and they had several children, one of whom was a teenage girl named Jenny. Well, the JW dad of the family, one Saturday morning, he's checking the mail and he's going through the letters. Well, he finds a package addressed to Jenny. Big package, and there's no return address. Well, this is suspicious, would say. And he would, in one writing, he said he was writing in prose, but he was speaking to Jenny and queried to her if she liked the way his man looked when it was bulging in the front of his pants. And he said, "Oh, on Thursday night when you walked in the hall, and I turned and saw you, my man lifted up." He said, "I saw you, and my man lifted." He described to her how his man raised up. Well, they said, that sounds like maybe something a Hispanic brother would say. Well, calm down. Anyway, this investigation continued for a couple, 3 weeks, and the letters continued coming until there was finally a break in the case. The stalker made a critical mistake in one of his writings, and these would go on for pages. But in one segment of this passionate letter, he again was speaking in this open letter to Jenny and asked her, "On Sunday, when my man was inches from your face," he asked her, "could you feel the energy pulsating off my man?" And the elder, the lead elder in the case, his name is Stanley, very perceptive man, said, "Well, when would his man have been inches from Jenny's face?" And it occurred to him, microphone handler, waist level, she's right there. Well, this group of suspects, which was 300 people, being a double Kingdom Hall with 150 each, was quickly reduced down now to 2 people. The 2 microphone handlers on that Sunday meeting, one of which was a guy that did not fit the bill at all. The other one was a Hispanic 31-year-old man named Pepito. Yeah. Well, immediately they called Pepito into a elders meeting, and they gave him the 3rd degree, but he didn't crack. He just denied everything, swore up and down that it wasn't him. And because there was no evidence or witnesses against him, the elders just had to leave it at that. But the next evening, Stanley thought of something, and he called Pepito up and he said, we'd like to have another meeting with you, and this time we'll do a handwriting analysis. If you could bring in some of your letters and just write this out, and then we'll compare it with the letters that we received, and we'll put the matter behind us. And Pepito agreed to that. But a couple of hours later, he called the elder back and said that he had a family emergency that was happening in California. His family, they're having a hard time paying their bills, and they need him to move over there. So he packed up his stuff and left before the next meeting. Then 24 hours, he was gone. And if you're asking how I know all the details of the case, well, one of the elders in the hall, his wife was the biggest gossip in the circuit, so everyone knew the details. And when Jenny found out that it was Pepito that had been writing these pornographic letters to her, she said, "Oh, sick." Well, that was the end of Pepito. He left, no one ever saw him again. And if you're asking, was that the end of the letters? Well, indeed it was. So, you tell me. You know, the JW legal system receives a lot of criticism online, but I'm just keeping it real. In this instance, had the JW parents opted to call the police and turn the matter over to them, well, you know what would have happened. They would have filled out a little report, put it in a file somewhere, and done nothing, right? Well, in this case, they turned the matter over to the elders, and because of the elders' expertise and knowledge of the Kingdom Hall situation, they were able to take care of business. They got their man, they solved the case. Look, if worldly people had been left in charge of this, the stalking would have gone on for months, resulting in who knows what. But the situation was dealt with and taken care of. Like it or not. Well, this wasn't the last time that the task force would be assembled. In the same hall, not even a year later, there was another sister in the congregation who was also receiving some unwanted attention from a mysterious man. Her name was Marietta. Marietta was new to the truth. She had just been baptized recently. She was a Spanish-speaking woman, very beautiful, long black hair, single mother. She had been married to a Mexican cowboy guy and recently divorced. You see, he was a ranch hand. He's one of these guys who wears a big cowboy hat, cowboy boots, the whole deal, and he was one of these rodeo guys that would go on the circuit there. And of course, he was living that honky-tonk lifestyle of going to bars, chasing women. Marietta put up with it for a long time, but once she came into the truth, she stopped the whole thing and attained a scriptural divorce. Well, her worldly ex-husband, he didn't take it very well. They had 2 small children together, and so he was pretty unstable about the whole thing. He showed up drunk a couple of times. One of those real temperamental guys. You know those worldly types. Well, Marietta began having some problems about a year after she got baptized. She told the elders that she was getting mysterious phone calls in the middle of the night. She would, at midnight, she'd get a phone call, get up out of bed, go answer, and it'd be breathing on the phone. Or sometimes just hanging up, and she told the elders, "A man is watching me." She felt like a man was after her. And the body of elders told her to keep them apprised of the situation. Well, not long after that, something did occur. Marietta is a cleaning lady now. She does cleaning jobs in the evenings, so that she can, focus on field service during the daytime there. She goes in to banks, office buildings after hours, vacuums, cleans up. Well, she's coming out of one of her accounts this one evening and putting her supplies back in the car, and the streets are empty, but she looks down about a block away and she sees a man peeking out from behind the building. It's dark, she can't really see who it is, but there is definitely someone watching her. Well, she's terrified. She gets in her car as quick as she can, drives away. And she goes to her next account, gets her jobs done, and returns home that evening. And she's unloading her supplies again. She looks up in the moonlight. In the tree line about 100 feet away, she sees the silhouette of a man standing